Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is take your piece of clay that I give you. Yours will probably look like this, a little more oval shaped, and create it into a pinch pot. So the first thing that you need to do is shape this into a cube. You're going to hit it down, starts to flatten it out like that, hit it down, and go in a circle like that so that you end up with more of a rectangle. At this point, you can hit on these ends, which is going to kind of fatten it up a bit. And then you just keep working it until it gets into a cube. Now you have your cube. This is the easiest way to make a ball of clay if you're working with a lot of clay, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to take this in your hand and you're going to use your palm and hit on all four corners on both sides. And that's going to help get it more into the circular or spherical shape. So there you have your sphere of clay. At this point, if you're right-handed, you want to be able to have your right hand free. This is going to be on your left hand, all right? If you're left-handed, you'll do the opposite. But you're going to take your thumb and you're going to press it into the middle, but make sure you're not pressing it all the way through. So you're going to press it into the middle. So your thumb's going to go down in there, okay? And then you're actually going to make a pinch motion. This is called a pinch pot for a reason. So you're going to hold it in your hand and you're going to pinch way down here. So you're pressing your thumb towards your fingers and you're going to go in a circle until you've pinched one full rotation. So you can kind of see that that's starting to get a little bit, rounded. Then you're going to come up a little bit and pinch all around in a full circle. And then you'll come up again. And then you're going to do the upper lip of it, but please don't pinch it too much. So you don't want it to be too thin. Your goal is for the walls all to be roughly the same thickness. So at this point, you kind of got this really thick cup that's sort of rounded at the bottom. Depending on what you're making, you might not want to make it completely like a circle. You might want to make it more oval shaped. So you can manipulate it a little bit, or anything like that. You might want these edges to come out more, almost like they're a bowl. It's very much up to you. If you want to leave it so it's pretty much straight up, when you're pinching, you want to make sure that you're kind of coming towards the center. If you want these to come outward, then you would pinch outward, and it would open it up a little bit, more like a bowl. At this point, though, if you notice any cracking around the edges, you can kind of see it right here. You want to make sure that you're smoothing that out with your finger as you're going. See, we have some more cracks right here. Smooth that out with your finger as you're going. You don't want it to dry out too much. That just happens because your hands are touching it. It's pulling out all that moisture. So at this point, you can kind of use both hands. You can pinch that lower area to thin it out a little bit. All right, so I'm going to try to make this come like where it's opening slightly. And I'm just pinching the areas that are a little thicker than the other areas. And a lot of people end up leaving this part of it a little too thick, and if your hand can't quite get all the way down, like my finger can get down to there where it would be really thick around here, but my thumb can't, you can use your other hand and kind of press together so that you can thin that out. And obviously the more clay you have, the bigger bowl or cup you can create. Okay, so now I have that kind of evened out. I can sort of flatten out my bottom a little bit if you'd like. And then at this point you're going to go through and smooth everything that you need to. So you can kind of see, is it right here, that I need to smooth that out a little bit. You can also take a yellow sponge, and you can, this is damp right here, and you can kind of go over your pieces at any point with that damp sponge. It gives a little bit of water back into the clay. makes it a little smoother, rehydrates it. So once you're good to go here, I suggest come back in with that damp sponge. And you're more than welcome to get it, like re-wet it as much as you need to. And then notice the inside's actually pretty smooth. You can see a little bit where my fingers were, but you can also go back in and smooth that out a little bit more too. You can use your hands. You can even use one of these wooden modeling tools that we have to sort of smooth things out a little bit more if you need to. Whatever kind of works for you. Okay, so the next thing that you're going to need to know how to do is create a coil. At this point, you're going to need to make a coil or whatever it is that you want to attach. Let's just pretend we're going to make some sort of handle, like this is a bowl. But a coil is in essence like a rope of clay. And the closer you can get it to like that, you know, a long sort of rope of it, the easier it's going to be. So I just cut off this little piece here. And what you want to do is kind of just turn it around in your hand and gently squeeze to create, get that part off, to create a little coil. So you're just kind of turning that around, trying to keep it round. Some people accidentally get it a little more square, right? I'm just pressing as I'm rolling that. Now, once you have this about where you want it, what you need to do is actually start rolling your coil. You're going to keep your hands in the center first, and then you're going to roll back and forth and gently, you know, bring your hands outward. As you bring your hands outward, you can bring your fingers outward, like open them up a little bit. So you're going to roll back and forth, and then I'm going to focus on the thicker areas. That's pretty thin here. That's a little thicker. So I might focus on that area. And if it starts to flatten out, you can roll it upward and kind of reshape it a little bit. Sometimes you need to do that. Some days I'm great at rolling a coil, and other days it's a little harder. So I don't have to do much rolling. I got that pretty close to the size I want it. So now I'm ready to attach this coil. Before you do anything with the coil, again, you want to get it wet again. So get that damp sponge and kind of go over top of your coils. Again, this puts a little water back into it and it smooths it out. And doing this also makes something bend a little easier. So now let's say I want to attach this coil here. So what I'm going to do is kind of measure out where do I want to put it, how do I want to attach it. So especially if I'm making a handle, some people want to just go like that. That's a pretty long handle, kind of unnecessary. And if you attach something directly like just like that, it's not going to help. So I always mention kind of overlap it a little bit. So if you notice, I've curled it around just slightly. So then you can sort of smear that in and onto your mug or whatever it is you've got. Now I still think that's too big right there. So I might trim it up a little bit. Cut that part off, kind of come down here, and I think I might want my handle to look a little bit like that. Okay, so I've got my handle looking pretty good at this point. So you'll notice I curved this around and I started to smear that in on the underside here. The underside here, I've started to smear that in, okay? And at this point, you need to make sure that you secure your connections, okay? So this top part and this top part where I haven't smeared it in, you actually need to take a little bit of extra clay, okay, right here. You can break some off and kind of roll that clay around in your fingers till you make almost like looks like a little worm out of clay. All right, and so you're going to take this little bit and wrap it around right here. Let's see if you can see that. Wrap it around there, and then you're going to need to completely smooth that in. So let's see if I can do it so that you can see it. So you're going to take this tool here. Part of that clay goes onto your mug all the way around. and the other part goes onto the handle, or whatever it is you're attaching. Doesn't have to be a handle. Now, if you've noticed that you have thinned out that handle too much, notice that it's got a dip in it, you'll still want to add some more clay, because that's a weak spot, and we don't want a weak spot. So you'd also do the same thing down here. You would add in some clay, just like you did up here, and smooth it in, because that is a good solid connection right there. Okay, now obviously I can't pick this up just yet, but you're not done at this point, because if you notice, this is really sort of rough right here. You could take a paintbrush. For these tighter areas, a paintbrush is great, but you could take a paintbrush, or you could take your sponge, and you can kind of go over everything and smooth it out. That's how every connection should go. I don't care what it is that you do. Every connection should go that way. So on your pinch pot project, you guys are actually going to have to create a creature out of your pinch pot. And I'll show you some examples, but some people will put like horns on their creature. They'll put noses. They'll put coils to create like little forehead wrinkles and things like that. In fact, let me show you the forehead wrinkle, because that was a question that somebody once had, and I thought that was brilliant that they did it.